the Pentagon just declassified 3 UFO videos taken by Navy pilots. Father Spitzer, do you think that the declassified sightings indicate intelligent life forms outside of our galaxy that are visiting us?
If they really are what we think we're seeing.
If aliens exist, would they be made in the image of God?
If they had interstellar travel technology, they could destroy us in a nanosecond. And they could, of course, do mental manipulation, too.
Could we be enslaved right now and we don't know it? Let's game this out a little bit. So based on what you're saying, let's just theorize here. Is there scientific proof for aliens? If aliens are real, what does that mean for how we should interact with them? Are they among us? How do we know if they are? Do they have souls? If you're a Christian, should you try to convert an alien, and how would you even do that? We explore these questions and so many more with the brilliant Father Robert Spitzer on today's episode of The Lila Rose Show. Father Robert Spitzer is a philosopher and a physicist. He's the author of multiple books and the head of the Magis Center for Faith and Reason. He's also the former president of Gonzaga University. We also look at some of the footage that has been released from Navy pilots who were tracking unidentified foreign objects that cannot be explained by any natural cause. And we get Father Spitzer's analysis of whether these are actual alien craft or lasers. We have a bet going actually throughout this episode, and you'll see where we land by the end of it. Also, don't forget we have just launched our Supercast. Supercast is a special exclusive community. You get access behind the scenes to ask questions of a guest, have them answered on the podcast, and lots of other behind the scenes stuff that's going to be really fun. So you can go check that out over at rosereport.supercast.com. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're here on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell. I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for coming back, Father Spitzer.
Oh, what do you mean? No, this is great.
It's always so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Yeah. We were talking last time about consciousness, which was fascinating. We are talking today about UFOs.
Right.
Unidentified foreign objects. And there was this congressional hearing a few months ago about UFOs and experts testifying about seeing UFOs before the U.S. Congress. We're going to take a listen and then hear your take on all these things because it's very fascinating. I also need to let people know Father Spitzer has actually given talks across the country on Catholicism, of course, but also UFOs and Catholicism, UFOs and the Christian faith. So how should Christians think about aliens? So we're going to get into that in today's episode. What got you interested, Father Spitzer, in UFOs?
Well, obviously, when you're doing apologetics as I do in some fashion or another, you read these, sometimes these cases, well, in this Bible, this explanation happened because of UFOs, or this miracle happened by aliens, or this thing happened, and after a while you go, this is just overwhelming. There's not a single bit of hard evidence. Now, there is visual evidence, but, if I could just see some kind of an alloy that was unproducible, on the earth, but somehow, would show, an alien intelligence that would have to have, a super AI to discover this alloy and build it. Or if I could just find some technology that could show me, a way of avoiding the obvious catastrophes that would come from trying to, drive at, interstellar spaces and intergalactic spaces. If I could just anything, I'd be a believer, but, I just never could find it. But of course, there is a lot of visual evidence, and that evidence is brought about by people who do claim, that UFOs are doing things. But the problem is a lot of the things the UFOs are doing may well be within the capacity of human technologies that we do not know of yet, and even experimental technology. So, I have to say, for example, some of the movements, that you see that sometimes look like, that's unduplicatable. Yes, it's unduplicatable by a jet aircraft, for example. It couldn't do that because a jet aircraft has momentums. It doesn't have the ability to isolate and to, but if you could, find a way of utilizing some forces, including a gravitational force, and, finding ways of actually manipulating that, you might be able to pull off some of these unusual things. But there could be visitations, and so
let's take a look at what these. You mentioned there have been some visible signs of UFOs. We haven't found sort of like materials that indicate otherworldly essentials of some kind, but this is actual experts testifying at a congressional hearing just a few months ago on UFOs. Sure. So let's take a listen, and then I'm excited to hear your take on this. Again, we have this very cool PowerPoint from Father Spitzer from these talks that he's given on UFOs and what that means for the soul, for Christianity, for people of good conscience. So a lot to unpack here, but let's start with this hearing from experts at Congress. Here we go.
It's a question a lot of folks have been asking for decades. Is there intelligent alien life? And if so, has the government been covering it up? Well, that was actually the focus of a hearing yesterday by a House Oversight Committee. NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us from Washington with the latest on this ongoing debate. And there were some surprises in that hearing yesterday, Ryan.
Yeah, that's right, Craig. At yesterday's hearing, ex-government and military officials suggested that may be the case, that there are intelligent beings that live off of the planet. Witness testimony included a range of stories related to UFOs and UAPs, which stands for unidentified anomalous phenomenon. One former Navy admiral said that he had confirmation of them in 2015 when he remembers getting an email from U.S. Fleet Force Command. The video showed a flying object by a Navy aircraft doing exercises, noting that there were several near mid-air collisions. The next day, he said the email mysteriously disappeared from his and others' accounts. No explanation was ever provided from another Defense Department official, and they claimed that the U.S. and its adversaries were hiding away UAP technologies. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies.
Now, this witness urged the new Trump administration to have more transparency, saying that he believes that Americans can handle the truth. Now, we've reached out to the Pentagon for comment, but we've not heard back. Craig?
So many questions.
All right. Do you think, Father Spitzer, do you think we are in an unidentified object secret arms race, potentially with other countries or aliens?
Yeah. Well, we're not in an arms race with the aliens. Believe me, if they have the capacity for interstellar travel, they are so far ahead of us. I mean, literally, we're talking about a million years or more ahead of us in technology. That, interstellar travel right now, just to get to our nearest star, Proxima Centauri or Alpha Centauri, one of those two stars, right now, it would take us like, let's say it's about 27 trillion miles to that star. So that's a trillion is a million. So if it's traveling at 1 million miles an hour, it would take us, several years to get there. So, I mean, if you wanted to, travel a little less than 1 million miles an hour, which, of course, I think we probably, would be more, less of a stretch, that's going to take decades or more to get here. But nevertheless, think about that, traveling at 1 million miles per hour. This is like, exponentially higher rates of technology. If they came here, they'd have a technology, honestly, that could destroy us.
They could destroy us.
Yeah. So, if they had interstellar travel technology, they could destroy us in a nanosecond. They would be so far advanced. They would know literally not just how to manipulate gravity. They would even have the capacity to go through maybe a black hole or do something of that nature. That would put them at the capacity of, actually, they could destroy our solar system and, the whole thing, in a rather short period of time. So that's the power of the technology they would have. And no arms race will ever catch up with that. So, I mean, they'd be 1 million years ahead of us.
So just to kind of put a finer point on that, what you're saying, which is very fascinating, is, you're basically saying, it sounds like, if there are aliens, if these unidentified objects or phenomenon that is being perceived by even Navy SEALs, it's maybe hidden, government communications about this. If that's true, and if it is aliens and they somehow are from some other planet in another galaxy or star or something, then they would have to be not hostile to us, because you're saying they would have already blown us into smithereens if they wanted to destroy us or enslave us.
Instantly. They just take a series of force fields and literally enslave, manipulate us, and they could, of course, do mental manipulation too. I mean,
could we be enslaved right now and we don't know it?
No, because it's pretty hard to have the illusion of freedom, even in the so-called Matrix scenario. Because as a matter of fact, we do have choices, and right this very minute, I'm choosing to be here, and I don't have to be here, and I don't, there's nothing that's sort of
unless
tipping
the aliens work for me and they've manipulated into you coming here, Father.
That's right.
So you have this presentation, and so it starts with, are alien life forms possible or even probable?
Yeah.
And so we just heard some congressional testimony from someone saying, basically this has been, there have been federal officials who have seen, military members who have seen this really inexplicable phenomenon, or they've seen these unidentified objects and they've not been able to be cataloged as anything that they can explain. So they're in the UFO category. Do you think that those are there is some maybe spiritual explanation for them? Like they are seeing some sort of an angel or, a demon even, or could it be, what do you think it is, Father Spitzer? Life gets super busy, and if you're not getting good sleep, it can be hard to show up for the people who matter the most. And there's nothing like smooth, silky sheets or your comfiest pajamas to help you get the sleep that you need. That's why I love Cozy Earth. CozyEarth.com has luxuriously soft, temperature-regulating bamboo sheets and pajamas that help you sleep comfortably and that actually last. Their bedding is incredibly soft, breathable, and comfortable. Cozy Earth even offers a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty on all their beddings. That means if you don't love it, you can get your money back. So get the sleep that you need to show up for the people that you love and get your sheets, pajamas, and so much more from CozyEarth.com. And right now, you can get a full 40% off your order using my exclusive code Lila. Go to CozyEarth.com/Lila. That's CozyEarth.com/Lila for 40% off. What do you think it is, Father
Well,
Spitzer?
if they're angelic, they certainly don't need to be in a spacecraft. So, I mean, the idea of, an angelic being coming in a spacecraft is kind of ludicrous. Why would they slow themselves down when they already have telepathy capable of surpassing anything that, one of an advanced civilization spacecraft could do? So the first thing is I would say a purely spiritual nature. No way would they need a spacecraft. Well, why slow yourself down? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, do I think it could be an advance? It could be, but let's face facts. They would have to have 5 elements of human intelligence that go beyond physical processes and structures. So number one, they'd have to be self-conscious. In other words, aware of their awareness. And if they, had the capacity to getting themselves all at the same time with the same faculty, then they already, have, something that's totally beyond physical processes and structures, right? So they would, if they're like us in self-consciousness, they've already got self-conscious, they have a soul. You just cannot explain this with a physical organic system. A physical organic system is limited by the speed of light and a variety of other things. You cannot be with self-conscious. The second thing is the whole problem of abstract consciousness, the capacity to abstract groups, or relationships among relationships, et cetera. These kinds of things, like AI will never be able to duplicate this, right? A physical process and structure will not be able to do it. AI will never know what a group is really like and be able to, manipulate it in our way of doing mathematics, what we call trans-algorithmic mathematics, as Kurt Gödel, the big German mathematician would have already predicted. I mean, Gödel has this incompleteness theorem that pretty much shows that AI will never be able to replicate what we do. Quantum computing is not the answer, because at the end of the day, quantum computing will not get you to the point of being able to abstract something that can only be held in a spiritual entity, a group, a relationship, etc. is not linked to a specific individual physical thing.
And just to be clear, you're saying that these are aspects of what it would take for these to be actually intelligent creatures.
They'd have to have a soul is what I'm saying. They'd have to have a soul because they'd be self-conscious. They'd have to have a soul because they'd have to be able to do mathematics like we do mathematics, not like AI does mathematics.
So if that like spaceship type object you're saying was real,
mm-hmm.
let's say not some visual illusion mm-hmm. or some sort of human-made technology that we don't know about, whatever, mm-hmm. then it would have had to have been created by an intelligent being that has a soul, which would be an alien.
Yeah, that's right. And I would say, too, that alien being has a conscience, too, because honestly, why wouldn't you enslave us? Why wouldn't you just take advantage of us? Why wouldn't you just, for a pure amusement, just kill us all, because there's something in you that's saying it's wrong. There's something there where they are so unbelievably self-restrained. Their power advantage over us would be, like I said, 1,000,000 years worth. So, when you're dealing with that, you'd have to say, well, they're not only restrained, but they're morally restrained. They're not just saving us for a better dinner later. They're basically restrained because they're beneficent. And so that occurs to me. And finally, I'm sure, that they would also have to have our transcendental desires for perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home. So I think what you would probably find is that they would have, they would desire, like we desire, to have the complete set of correct answers to a complete set of questions. Only with a genuinely curious being capable of abstractions and self-consciousness can you actually have that pure, unrestricted desire to know that we have, but that's precisely what's needed for what's called creativity. And we are creative, and they'd have to be exceedingly creative to do, what is being claimed is being done. And then on top of all of that, I think they would also have the unrestricted, the pure unrestricted desire for what I call charitable love, and the pure unrestricted desire for, goodness and fairness. And at the end, for beauty too. So all of these things, they would be like us. And I think, that you look at the supposed symmetrical designs, the spacecraft and so forth. I mean, it's truly remarkably beautiful, remarkably symmetrical, remarkably, good in the sense of, capable of doing something that could be used for evil or for good, and it's being used for good, apparently, because of the restraint shown. So I think, they'd be like us. I think they absolutely have to have a soul. Absolutely.
So let's look at, this is the Pentagon's 3 declassified UFO videos taken by U.S. Navy pilots. So let's take a look at this. And then I want to ask your thoughts on what these videos, in your view, prove, if anything, about the existence of aliens. So let's take a look at this. It says the Pentagon just declassified 3 UFO videos taken by Navy pilots.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
It says the footage shows unidentified objects flying at high speeds through the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
The mysterious flying objects remain unidentified to this day. The declassification is meant to clear up any misconceptions by the public.
Mm-hmm.
One video was taken in 2004 and the other 2 in 2015. The videos were taken during training flights and leaked to the New York Times in 2017. The U.S. Navy formalized a reporting process in 2019 for pilots to report incidents of UFO sightings. This is taken from CNBC's report.
Mm-hmm.
Father Spitzer, do you think that I know you're familiar with this, do you think that the declassified sightings by these Navy pilots indicate intelligent life forms outside of our galaxy that are visiting us?
If they really are what we think we're seeing, and they are not some form of a projected image or something of that nature. In other words, you could do something rather, interesting in producing some kinds of three-dimensional imaging with light that could, look like that, but not have the mechanical apparatus. So as long as we could disprove that they are not, a light projection of some kind, that it wouldn't be produced by a highly, a fairly sophisticated technology. It would have to be that, but we certainly have the capacity to produce three-dimensional light images into the sky, doing all kinds of things. If we can rule that out, then that's probably an unidentified flying object that was probably built or crafted by an intelligence that was much greater than our own. And
Wow.
And I again would hasten to add that it's a beneficent intelligence, because it would be quite beyond us. If it really did come from another star or another planet, like I said, their capacity for space travel would be
Amazing.
amazing.
Did you know that every year 200,000 families go bankrupt from medical bills, even with health insurance? For many people, insurance is simply not working for them. That's why I'm excited to share with you about CrowdHealth, which is an alternative model for paying for your healthcare. CrowdHealth takes your bills, personally negotiates them on your behalf, and then sends out a request to the community to help cover your bills. The CrowdHealth community has fully funded more than 5,000 medical bills over the last 2 years. This includes accidents like a young woman in Tennessee who lost her fingers in a boating accident, to NICU babies and cancer cases. Keep in mind, CrowdHealth is not the same thing as insurance, but it is an alternative model to help pay medical bills and keep your monthly costs low. So go to Join CrowdHealth today. Use the code Lila at checkout to get your first 3 months for only $99. That's joincrowdhealth.com and use the code Lila at checkout to get your first 3 months for only $99. Joincrowdhealth.com. But can we rule out that it is these? I mean, what's your view on this? Can we rule out that it's not some sort of, intricate, sophisticated light play that human beings are, for whatever reason, doing, and the Navy pilots saw it, whether accidentally or otherwise?
It could be you can do with lasers today. You can project some mighty sophisticated imaging right into the sky. The fact that this is going on in broad daylight would mean that this would have to be a high capacity laser techniques. And so I would say that, there's as much odds of it being as, I'd say right now, I think we just need to rule that out, because there is a chance it could be that, but there might be a greater chance that it could be a technology. I mean, we couldn't, in those films, what you see images, and you can see very powerful images, in laser light technology that are projections, and and so I just don't want to say it's not them until I can find just one little piece of evidence that there is a material substance involved here. It doesn't have to be a fancy alloy. It could be something else, but that constructed and using some alloy that we don't know of, but might be within our grasp. But the main thing I would say is I just like to rule out any kind of light projecting, laser projecting technology. And you could have some really high performance lasers that could do some really fancy imaging. And I just don't want to get bamboozled, because, visual images, they can be deceiving.
So,
and we do have those technologies right now.
So if it's not, let's rule it out. Let's say it's not the lasers, right? And let's say that it is, could it then also be this sort of, this other idea of there's some arms race, secret arms race, not with the aliens, secret arms race with, say, China. That's not about lasers. There's maybe it involves lasers, but there's some other technology, and we're kind of running these experiments. There's a secret US program and a secret Chinese program. And so these Navy pilots are kind of running into these demonstrations, basically.
Well, again, that's the second thing that needs to be ruled out. That one's probably less likely because some of the things, of where the spacecraft, so-called, is, going, and it's making these really super fast movements and shifting momentum that seems to be way beyond our kind of technology. Maybe we have advanced to, that much, and maybe there are some that can do a reversal of momentum on the spot without any kind of residual inertial motion. If that really did happen, well, I'd be fooled, but I don't think that one's as likely. But it's possible that we could have come this far technologically. But it seems right now, given the way we have been manipulating, our physical laws, or not manipulating, but using our physical laws in very creative ways to create a very quick starting momenta. I don't think this technology is within our capacity right now, and I've seen no indication of it, like in research magazines.
So is your money on the aliens, Father Spitzer? That these videos we just watched, this is not lasers, this is not a secret arms race between humans, this is aliens.
I think it's
if you had to bet, if you were a betting man.
Oh boy, I'm really 50-50 on the lasers versus the aliens, but I guess I might give the aliens a slight edge.
$100 on the aliens?
Maybe 50 cents.
50 cents? Okay. Well, we'll go with 50 cents. So if they are, so from a Christian viewpoint, there's no issue with the idea, theologically speaking. It doesn't contradict Holy Scripture. It doesn't contradict Christian natural law. This idea that there could be other intelligent life forms besides human persons.
Oh, no.
And besides angels.
No, as a matter of fact, if God gave them a soul, and I mean, as I said, if they think like us, if they have self-consciousness like us, if they have transcendental ideas like us, if they have a conscience like us, which all leads to if they have free will like us, then to be honest with you, they have a soul. You cannot explain those five operations with physical processes and structures alone. So because of that, I would say, they have a soul, and so we just have to acknowledge that, right? We're not talking about how many exoplanets are there out there, so that you can have a bacterial life form or a complex vegetative life form in the universe. I mean, that's certainly possible.
So are aliens made in the image of God then? If aliens exist, would they be made in the image of God?
They would have a soul just like us. They would be made in the image and likeness of God.
So that's who's more in the image of God, humans or aliens?
Well, I mean, we'd both equally be there. The difference would not be in terms of, do we have greater or lesser power? We have, it's a matter of, I think, 1 million years of evolution and 1 million years of knowledge accumulation differential. So, I mean, our galaxy, is a pretty old galaxy by any standard. So, it's about 13.57 billion years old. Our universe is only 13.8 billion years old. So, but hey, right in there, you've got tens of millions of years to play with.
But so are you of the view, because I know we haven't had this debate on the show, evolution versus creationism, or evolutionary creationism, like God uses evolution to create. And certainly there's elements of evolution that are obvious, right? The microevolution, I think they call it. And then there's macroevolution, if I'm using the correct terms here.
That's right.
I am curious though. So you're saying, it sounds like you're saying, given enough physical time, there is this sort of intelligence development that happens in creation naturally by God's design.
Yeah.
And you would argue that over maybe 1 million years, if time went on for 1 million years on planet Earth, would the human person, how do you think that the human person would develop more than we already have?
Yeah, I would say that, there would be techniques for probably allowing us to morph our forms. I think that's coming, but you cannot, for example, do turn, a human being into energy trick, the transporter in Star Trek, right? I mean, if you did that, honestly, you would create the equivalent of enough atomic power to fuel a city for a year.
But sorry to interrupt, but just so I'm tracking here, are you saying it's less that the human brain develops superpowers and it's more that we develop technology because the cumulative knowledge of humans over a period of time develops a technology that then gives us special powers? Yeah,
our brain is pretty much our brain. Obviously, neural links and things like that will enhance our brain. But the 5 functions which our souls perform, that's not going to be enhanced by Neuralink. It's not going to be enhanced by having even a million more years of development. Yes, of course, our memory capacity can be super amplified, right? And you could do the neural links plus, all kinds of, advantaging children through terrible, gene manipulation to make sure that the best, kids with the best memory, come out and they get the best neural links and so forth and so on. And all these things are put together so that you kind of have a super basis, of material basis, for memory. That's true. But will you get true genius from all that technology? No, you will not. Yep, the genius is a property of the soul, and all of the those elements of genius. So I mean, I'm sorry to say, it's not Einstein's brain. You can look at Einstein's brain, you can examine Einstein's brain, and all I can tell you is it's not going to be a brain that is. Through transverse cuts, all kinds of things that you can look at it. You can say, well, is this brain special brain? That doesn't look like it's a really special brain. You say, oh, well, maybe it's protein cell synthesis. No, it's not really any quicker protein. Well, maybe there's all kinds of refinement of tissue. Well, this tissue's not that much more refined. What is it? I mean, there's something in the soul of that person. In my mind, that's, what I would call a super creative. And it's not just IQ, that immeasurable IQ. It's the creative imagination, and I think all trans-algorithmic mathematics has to be done by a soul. I think, by the way, I would get confirmation from Kurt Gödel himself, that this has to be the case, because he certainly believed that this could not be carried out by physical processes, and he actually believed in an immortal soul because of this very factor, the way we do math, the way we do language. And by the way, I would hasten to add the way we do music. And you've just got these people who are super creatives, and you go, was their brain different? Not really.
Wow. It's the soul.
It's the soul. And that's, yeah.
EveryLife.com is America's pro-life baby diaper and wipes company. I love EveryLife.com, and I use EveryLife diapers and wipes for my little ones because these are a best-in-class product that are clean. There's no harmful dyes or fragrances or phthalates in this product. It is designed to be healthy for your little one and good for your little one's skin. If you go to EveryLife.com/join today, by joining the Changing Lives Club, you not only get 10% off your monthly diaper and wipes subscription, in addition to that, you'll get a free tote bag, and EveryLife.com will donate a box of diapers and wipes to a mother and baby in need. And I'm excited to share, EveryLife.com is now offering training pants for your little one. These are 12-hour leak-proof training pants, pull-ups for that little one that is maybe potty training. You got to check them out. EveryLife also has just come out with their new shampoo and baby wash and lotion package. The product is amazing. I have already started to use it. That's EveryLife.com/join. Use the code Lila. I was reading on, sorry to interrupt, but it makes me think of Alexander Havard, who's this great, you may have heard of him, but he's kind of this, you could call him a personal development expert, but he really writes these spiritual works. And I was reading something he wrote on magnanimity and the openness of the soul to the inspirations of God, really. Yeah. And he had this comment about the importance of not comparing oneself to other people because that can stunt creativity. Yeah. And if you try to kind of sort of mimic the even intellectual activities of others, you are, limiting what you might naturally be able to contribute if you allowed your soul to just reach its own heights and not think about other souls and the heights that they're trying to reach.
All of us have our set of gifts, and you certainly do. And I have a set of gifts, and if we just allow our particular gifts to soar, other people can have other gifts, but they won't have your gifts, and they won't have necessarily my gifts. And so comparisons are always very bad news. And I think they're bad news also because they get us into a whole way of looking at our lives, that success depends upon the accumulation of some kinds of accumulatable things. And so I think that is, nonsense. But I do think, yes, you're going to reach a limit because, like I said, AI, you say, oh, AI is going to take over the whole world. No, AI can take over certain kinds of functions. It can do certain kinds of things. And it really is amazing. But AI is not creative. It can be given programs to run and assess huge databases very quickly. So I could give a set of instructions to AI to make me a whole 1,000 new alloys that are possible alloys. It would take me forever to do that by, calculation and so forth and so on. AI does it in a few seconds. You go, oh man, that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't amount to a hill of beans in terms of creativity itself. And by the way, AI will never have empathy either, and it will never have a conscience either, and it will never have self-consciousness either, an awareness of itself, or even an awareness of being aware of itself. It'll never have any of that stuff.
I have this theory that AI, we've not discussed this on the show yet, but that AI will actually, force is a strong word, but it can help at anyways. It could help human beings actually tap into what makes them the most human and make them less of the machines. It's sort of like what the industrial era did to the Industrial Revolution. Like now it's taking over these functions like, bricklaying or whatever. There's now machinery that lays the bricks.
So you can spend more time on being human.
More time on doing art, quite frankly. And so
more time on empathy. More
time on empathy. So instead of seeing this revolution taking place with technology as, it's replacing, blue collar jobs, or it's replacing even white collar jobs, like being a lawyer. So much of lawyerly work can maybe be done by AI.
Yes.
So much of, financial projection work can be done by AI, potentially all of this other stuff. But the good news is they can create more jobs that are more human in terms of art, the spiritual world, in terms of caretaking for other souls. I mean, think about how we, give daycare jobs, or the elderly, we put them in homes, but these are human souls that don't just have physical needs that maybe could be cared for by a, machine, but they have spiritual needs that you need another spirit to attend to. So it's just a theory,
right.
But
all of those things are right to make progress in faith. And just for that matter, you're not going to make any progress in mathematics, pure mathematics, by giving it to AI. You're going to have a human being do that. Then you can turn around, program it into the AI to use it. That's certainly possible. But I mean, the actual coming up with a whole new mathematics, like, you look at, Einstein and Hilbert, coming up with a whole new mathematics, called, the tensor. That's not based on really anything that we had been using previously. It's sort of like, I'm going to stop doing mathematics up to this point. I'm going to reinvent mathematics on a whole new prolific basis, and so forth and so on. I'm just going to, kind of invent a whole new way of doing things. Well, it so happened that mathematics was very useful for the general theory of relativity. But I can tell you this right now, AI wouldn't have come up with that. And by the way, it's not just artistic creativity. It's tons and tons of areas of intellectual creativity. And then where you are blending, for example, empathy with intelligence, or beauty, artistic capacity with intelligence, or conscience or moral reasoning with intelligence, or spiritual capacity with intelligence. All those things are way beyond AI. AI has no sense of God, no sense of a relationship with God, no sense of empathy, no sense of self-sacrificial empathy, what we would call love, has no sense of morality or conscience, no sense of felt nobility or felt guilt, no sense, you can combine these all with, our super creative capacities, which AI is not a super creative. It can do permutations on old creativity, and it could do like tons of good permutations on old creativity, but it's not going to come up with one single new like mathematical system or scientific system, etc. If we're going to defy get around the problem of gravity. If we're going to approach a black hole so that maybe if there is a wormhole at the end of it, we're going to get through it. We're not going to do it because AI pumped a bunch of stuff through old technology. We're going to have to come up with something that's abstractly and conceptually new.
I love that. New challenges, new opportunities for creativity instead of having to do the old things again and again and again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So back to our alien friends.
Yeah.
Who are,
But I would say they'd have one of those souls.
Oh, yeah. It makes a lot of sense. So going back to Christianity and our beliefs and the truth of, God being made in God's image. And you were saying, well, then certainly aliens would have to be made in God's image too. Uh-huh. What does that mean for salvation history? Because if they are these made in God image beings, souls, then they would have free will. Then they would have the choice to serve or to not serve God. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ is true man and true God. So he chose human form. He didn't choose alien form. Jesus chose human form. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean for this theory of the potential existence of aliens? Mm-hmm. Are they saved by Jesus Christ too? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have they made a decision once for all to serve and to not serve like the angels and they're locked in? What do you think?
So first, if God's going to create a soul so that these aliens can be self-conscious and creative and have abstract intelligence, etc., he's not going to deprive them of a conscience. That would be counter to God's he wants them to be good. So he's going to create a conscience in those beings. He's going to give them transcendental desires for perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home. He's going to give them a numinous sense, an interior numinous sense of himself, so that they're going to interrelate with him. He's not going to deprive them of any of the things that he has given to us spiritually, morally, aesthetically, etc. So the first thing is God's going to give them the whole soul. It'd be ridiculous for God to create a being that didn't have a soul that was, capable of intellectual creativity and self-consciousness, and then, not give them all the necessities they need for free will. So first of all, if God created a soul, he's going to create free will along with it. So if the alien is like us in intellect, he's going to be like us in conscience. He's going to be like us in transcendental desires. He's going to be like us in the interior religious experience. So all those things will be present. So what's going to happen? Well, the minute that alien is there, I don't care if it's on a planet, in a galaxy far, far away, right? I mean, the thing that it will be of relevance is, will the evil spirit, who doesn't have to worry about space-time travel, right? Will the evil spirit be at that alien's elbow the minute that self-conscious, free-willed, with a conscience, transcendental desire and experience of God within him is the evil spirit going to be there along with God? Absolutely. He's going to be right. And the
angels too.
And the angels too. Absolutely.
So sorry to interrupt you, but if you're saying, so if the aliens have any material essence whatsoever, then the angels and the demons would have access to them from the beginning of time.
Yeah. If they have a soul, then, the evil spirit and the angels are going to have access to them. And so I think right there, the minute that alien...
The baby alien.
Yeah, that's right. I think right at the elbow of that baby alien, you're going to have the evil spirit. And I mean, that's the whole... I don't know if you ever read Paralandra by C.S. Lewis. Yeah. That's the whole thesis, is maybe there's a civilization out there that didn't commit an original sin. But my thought would be this... the evil spirit is very crafty. Certainly we committed the original sin. If there's another civilization out there, I just have this suspicion the evil spirit's going to say the same thing. Hey, you're not God. You could be God. All you got to do is the following things. You don't have to really obey his commands. I know you know it in your interior. That's all, kind of malarkey. All he wants to do is prevent you from becoming as great as he is. It's all a matter of pride. Just go ahead. I mean, that's going to be very typical, right? That's going to happen. Okay, let's suppose that I'm going to say there's a 90% chance that alien, and I have no reason for saying 90%, but there's a good chance that alien, even though they have the same vision of God that we had before our fall, which is an incredibly clear, transparent vision of God that really connects us closely with him, that temptation, I want to be God too. That first of all temptations to self-idolatry, which of course brings on all the rest of it. The temptation toward pride and power. I want to dominate rather than serve. It's going to be put to that alien. Now, let's suppose the alien does fall. I think that God's going to do the same thing with them as he did with us. He's not going to let them fall all the way. As Catholic doctrine says, right? I know Calvinists believe, you have a complete fall, but we Catholics don't believe that. We're at least 51% good after the fall. So we've got, and then, there's a foundation for Jesus Christ's redemption to build on. So I'm going to say, my speculation would be, and again, I'm just operating out of theory.
And sorry to interrupt really quick, but that doctrine, which is so beautiful, I love this idea of concupiscence, but that we were made good. We were made good. It's because if you're made in the image of God, you can't totally destroy that. Even the fact that the devil exists, that his very existence is allowed by God. There's nothing, because good is evil is the absence of good. It's the complete absence of good. So and you probably have a more eloquent way to say that.
No, but it's very true.
But just to respond to the Calvinist and this idea that we're completely filthy like rags. There's no good in us.
Yeah, that would be absolutely impossible. By the way, it would also eradicate your free will. Yeah. And why Calvin didn't figure that out, I do not know, because it's perfectly obvious to me. If you have really no sense of good whatsoever, you fall all the way, so that you're not at least 51% good, and your predisposition is at least 51% toward good, even if it's 49% in the other direction. It's still, you would not be free. And so, I just don't think Calvin's, epistemology and certainly not his metaphysics could stand up to this. But the long and the short of it is, though, I think the aliens would, if they fell, they're going to need a redeemer, to answer your question. And could Jesus' redemption do the job? Yes, Jesus' redemption is an infinite act of love. Therefore, it's going to redeem any, sin, any fall, right, of any civilization. So, when our missionaries went off initially, in the 1400s and the 1500s, discovered the New World and so forth and so on, they thought they were going to bring Jesus Christ to these other worlds. Now, today we look at other worlds in a slightly different way, like outer space. But I think we should treat it just as the old missionaries did. Instead of going across the ocean, we're going across, huge, vast expanses of space. So you look at that and you go, whoa, okay. Would we bring the word of Jesus Christ to these other civilizations? Absolutely we should. Number one, you can be sure that being already is aware of their fallen nature, that there's something sinful, that they feel guilty, they've violated their conscience. They're going to be just like us before we ever heard about Jesus Christ, right? So they're going to feel all the same things that we felt all that time between Adam and Eve and, of course, the coming of Jesus Christ. There's something wrong here, but at the same time, I'm still free. I still, I can act on the law or not act on the law. I have opportunity to do something I want, and at the same time, I am resisting that for the sake of my love of God, etc. That kind of thing is going to be present in that alien civilization, if it's a fallen civilization. So I'm presuming it's not going to be Paralandra. It's going to be a fallen civilization. But just like in Paralandra, there's going to be a devil figure there, right? And that evil figure is going to try and get the innocents to fall, to go all the way. But God didn't, leave us bereft, right? He gives us Jesus Christ, which is such a phenomenal solution, a phenomenal overcoming of the fall of original sin, that you look at it and you go, well, gosh, God sort of, oh, happy fault, as we say on Easter Vigil, right? That gave us through the sin of Adam such a Savior as the Son of God. So you look at that and you go, wow, well, that's true. God would do that. So what's my responsibility if I find an alien and it looks like he says, I certainly believe in God. I really have an interior experience of a being that's higher than me. I certainly have experienced evil angelic entities, and I've experienced good angelic deities. And I know just what you're talking about. And I think he would, or she would. Absolutely no. right away, what I'm talking about, I don't think it would be any mystery like, what?
So,
and then even if they had original sin. So I'd catechize them and I'd baptize them.
Well, so do you think, though, it's possible if these aliens do exist, if these like UFO sightings are aliens, and they're super intelligent, obviously, because they have technology that far surpasses ours, like you explained earlier so powerfully, surely they're observing us. They clearly are. And they know about Jesus because they hear us, they see our mass, they see our Christian belief. They've seen maybe even human history. They understand Jesus came into the world. Maybe they witnessed all of it. So maybe they already are catechized and they already are maybe even baptized. How does that work, though? Because
if they're visiting, I was more doing the missionary deal.
Okay.
But if they're visiting us, I think they have witnessed 1 million Catholic masses. Absolutely. They have a capacity to.
Can you baptize yourself if you're an alien? Because you would need to be. How does that work?
I don't know if you could.
So that would be an issue then. They would need to be baptized. There'd have to be one human to baptize at least one alien, and then that alien could go baptize others.
That's correct.
And then apostolic succession, they can't do sacraments, certain sacraments anyways.
Yeah. They couldn't imitate our sacraments. They would need human intervention to do that.
So it could be they're kind of hanging out like, give me the goods.
Well, maybe they could be doing that. Or, for example, I would, if I were an alien and I was looking, at the I know. If I were looking at a Catholic,
you're very smart. You might be an alien, Father Spitzer.
But I'm looking at the whole scene, right? And I'd be thinking to myself, that Eucharist makes sense to me. A complete gift of self that's made present, in the body and blood of Christ. I would say that's something very interesting indeed. Maybe the Eucharistic miracles themselves would be of interest to an alien culture that would just get a sign that there was a transcendent deity. But no, I don't think the aliens, if they have the technology they have, I don't think they'd be trying to play God or fool us into, thinking that they're, that they're gods or something like that.
Let's game this out a little bit. So based on what you're saying, let's just theorize here. If they are these beneficent beings that are material and soul, so they have souls, they're spirit and material, and they have a body of some kind.
And an awareness of God and a conscience.
So all these things, and they have been to the United States, they've been to the U.S. and certainly the world. These UFO sightings were on U.S. soil, I believe. But anyways, they've been all around the globe. Let's say they visited us, right? And they have observed our faith because they would have had to observe our faith, but they haven't made direct contact with us, except outside of the movie E.T., but they haven't made direct contact with us. So they're not baptized yet. They're not, they've not received any sacraments yet, right? But maybe they've made a profession of faith in their souls. Wouldn't they want to get the sacraments, and wouldn't they then try to communicate with human beings to get the sacraments?
Yeah, my answer to that is yes and yes. I do think they would want to get in contact with human beings to get those sacraments. Now, do I credit aliens with being present, to a human being? I think the way that they would do that, honestly, is they would try to not look like aliens.
Whoa.
They would try to look like us. And I would say that they would
go
try
undercover.
Yeah, I think they would basically come along and try to become part of a church. They'd look like, you or me, and they try to go to church. They try to befriend people. They get to know their pastor. They get baptized looking like a human. How could we possibly? Or
they would go to seminary and become a priest.
And they would become a priest. They could.
So would that be a valid? Sorry to interrupt, but
yes, it would.
So, but even though then they're also an alien, and then they would maybe die as a human, and then go back to their alien planet, and then they would go and share line of apostolic succession and sacraments on their alien
planet.
They
could certainly do all of it.
So you could be an alien, is what you're saying.
Yes, you could, because
you could be.
Oh, yes.
That's what we don't know. We don't know. I could be.
You never know. They'd probably look pretty close, because I'll tell you, I bet you they could make a perfectly good replication of a human being.
Would that
and
be
appear
deceptive,
in a very
though?
transmorphic. Well, I mean, it's deceptive on one thing, but it's deceptive for a good purpose. They want to be catechized, and they want to be baptized, and they want to be admitted into the church, and they want to go to seminary, and they're all good purposes. And do I think that the aliens who are here could have such a beneficent purpose? Yes, I do. I really do. Like I said, I find it amazing if they really have interstellar travel. Why don't they do something really evil for their own purposes? Why hasn't self-idolatry turned them into dominators, a veritable Hitler on an exponentially greater scale? Why? Because they're listening to their conscience. Yes, that's true. They do have an interior relationship with the numinous, with God. Yes, I really think that's true. But I also think they're also learning from Christianity, or either that, or they've had their own savior on their own planet, wherever it may be.
So you're saying the incarnation, because you were saying earlier the incarnation is enough, right?
Oh, it's enough. It's for sure.
So what do you mean by their own savior on
well,
their own planet?
let's suppose God. Yeah. I couldn't read God's mind right, and so let's suppose He did send another savior to another planet. Well, I couldn't rule it out.
But when you say another savior, you don't mean a savior like Jesus. You mean not God, a not God savior, like an angel.
I would say unless He took on a separate incarnation. And so it's Jesus who comes to the same Son of God, just coming to another civilization.
But He wouldn't have had to be crucified twice.
No, He would not have to be crucified
So He's more
twice.
Just going as Jesus to the other planet to preach the good news.
He could,
because the one sacrifice on Calvary was enough for the aliens.
That's pretty much on the marker. You're right on the marker. Hey, you got it. So that's really.
We figured it out, Father, right here, right now.
No, wow, I really think that you're right on the marker. And so
I like the theory that they're here.
Yeah.
And they've camouflaged themselves because they don't want to create disruption. They know that if they made themselves known in any kind of diplomatic way, mankind would just freak out. And so they're not doing that because they don't want to create drama, basically. Yeah. And so they're here, they're undercover to receive the sacraments, baptism, and then they're kind of quietly going home. Now, under that theory, you could make an argument that if they have the power to do that, wouldn't they also, because they're super life forms, super intelligent, all this stuff, wouldn't they have the power to solve a lot of our human ailments?
Well, the one thing is they don't want to, kill our freedom off, right? They can't do it for us. So, if the alien comes and says, I'm going to help you out, but basically says, I'm going to give you the solution to this problem, and they give us a solution to a problem where we don't have to, get our own creativity and morality, aligned toward coming to that solution ourselves, they're going to really undermine our free will. I mean, why doesn't God perform a miracle every 2 seconds? Lila has a problem. God.
But arguably, you could say there are miracles being performed every 2 seconds.
Oh, yes.
For those that ask and believe.
Yes, there
in God's
are.
Providence. So.
But why wouldn't it be like exponentially larger? Where you could just say, okay, Spitzer's going to be blind, and just, do it because, of course, there's something about being in an imperfect world that is very important to our getting to our salvation. There's something about being deprived, being in an imperfect condition, suffering even from the imperfect condition, that's really important to the purification of our love so that we can get to the point of egoless love, right? And then, inherit, as it were, the kingdom of heaven. There's something in it. And so the alien's not going to take away something that we need right now, in order. But don't worry, if an alien exists, he has his own imperfections and his own ghosts that he's going to have to wrestle with, right? He's going to have his own, demons, as they say, that nobody gets off the hook. Maybe they've mastered ways of getting around earthquakes and so forth. But they're not going to master ways of getting around spiritual battles, because if those aliens are like us, and they may well be, though they may be, hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us in technology, they're still going to have to fight the spiritual battles, the challenges. I mean, the devil is there. He's going to equal opportunity employer, right? He's going to want to definitely get the aliens. Tempted, disobedient, self-idolatrous, vain, whatever, domineering, and they're going to have to face these demons. And so nobody gets off the hook. So just because you have an advancement in technology, you're still going to have to fight that urge. And so we all have the imperfections, but theoretically, though, you're right. I mean, it's a good question.
But if they have superpowers effectively because of technological advancement, and the very fact, like you're saying, they're in our galaxy and in our planet is because of these superpowers, which you explained earlier is technologically advanced beyond what we can even imagine. We can hardly imagine, I should say. Anyways, then it would theoretically take just one bad day, one bad alien, one bad decision to destroy everything. Yeah. Well, to destroy everything on planet Earth. Because so like I think about like when like petty criminals in our world, right? So there's a human, they're a petty criminal. Thankfully, petty criminals don't have access to the nuclear codes, right? Thankfully. Right. And there's a lot of concern about who has access to nuclear weapons, right?
Right.
If you give it to a maniac or you give it to a petty criminal who has nothing to lose or whatever, again, not all petty criminals are, bad to the core. But anyways, we would see a lot more nuclear weaponry thrown around and we'd all blow each other up.
Yep.
Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet on planet Earth. Yeah. But if aliens have the ability effectively to blow us all up in a second, the technology is just right there at their fingertips. And theoretically, it's at the fingertips of virtually every alien because the technology, like the nuclear codes to an alien is like the iPhone to a human.
Yeah, except for one thing, though. Every alien may not have access to that because aliens can build in their own resistant technologies to prevent, malignant aliens from getting a hold of it and utilizing it. So you could actually, you hope that the good guys win out, right? But you're going to have some good, you're going to have some good guys and some bad guys. And so, they can be very preventative. But I do think that if you do have mostly beneficent aliens with the kind of technological apparatus, they can restrain others from building things. You can actually prevent them from utilizing various powers, especially things that have to be, materially aligned. But make no mistake about it, those aliens for sure, could get a bad actor. They could. And maybe they just, didn't see it coming. They could have, resisted them, but they didn't. Yeah, it could really extinguish us. But right now it looks like, the majority of the aliens that are here, if indeed they are here, like I said, I need to get the lasers ruled out first. But let's say, if they really are here, they seem to be truly beneficent, and they certainly seem to have pushed out the possibility of bad actors. But bad actors, hey, if Lucifer can be a head angel and he can fall, then alien can, with considerably reduced power, can fall too, can choose non serviam and basically say, I want to dominate instead and make self-idolatry the name of the game.
After this conversation, I'm leaning more into the camp of the lasers. Just because if the aliens are real and all of these things seem logically to follow in terms of their intelligence, their abilities, their openness to potentially Christianity, whether Jesus shows up for them on their planet or they learn about him over here, or Jesus sends an angel or whatever God chooses to do, right? I think this idea that we wouldn't know, that it would be some big secret that they kept from humanity, but they are at the same time beneficent, and at the same time they have free will, so there could be bad actors, but the bad actors haven't in any way injured us. Yeah. It just seems a lot of... Yeah,
there's a lot of assumptions there, but it could... That scenario could be true too. So, but, so you can't rule it all out, but I do think we do have to rule out the lasers. And
you do think we should rule out the lasers?
Well, no, I think if we're going to prove that these are really aliens, we have to rule out lasers. And the lasers could produce images that really look like aliens.
Well, that's why I'm saying I think it's lasers. I'm in the laser camp. I don't think it's aliens.
Yeah,
It's fun to theorize about aliens.
Yeah.
It's fun to think you might be an alien, 'cause you're but I don't know that that's true.
No, probably not.
And E.T. was pretty cute, but it just seems, is there something, do you think that, I know you were betting earlier 51% it's aliens. So you're on that bandwagon. Is there any other evidence that you've seen, Father Spitzer? I know we watched the UFO videos earlier that you think indicates that.
I think that the visual reports from, naval pilots and so forth, Navy pilots and so forth, probably they do have a little bit of suasion to them. But like I said, there's a perfectly other good explanation that could be out there, producible only by human technology. So I just don't want to leap into the alien thing. The other thing is, all these supposed places where an alien craft has crashed and so forth, and yet never do we find a single remnant of an alien. Now, maybe our government is hiding all this from us, but, why is it that somebody did not ingeniously sneak out one little teeny piece of whatever, that should be available.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, if you really had an alien crash site, I want to see that something. Don't tell me there was one, but we don't have any, remnant of it, or our government has ingeniously hidden everything. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But then again, like I said, I can be persuaded that you do have, some kind of a visitation that might be there. But there's a lot of things that have to be ruled out first, before I can be positive that they're there. And, by the way, the Drake equation pretty much says in our whole galaxy, there are probably only 30 civilizations that could probably, give rise to life that could.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah, but it's over vast distances that would take millions upon millions of years, even at 1,000,000 miles per hour, to get, here to the earth and start manifesting themselves. But like I said, you could have technological equivalents, they might have some ability, some super technology that could do it. But again, I need to be persuaded. I mean, the millions upon millions of travel, and everybody says, "Oh, it's going to be done by a wormhole." No way. I mean, the wormhole won't work because you got to first go through the black hole to get to the wormhole. But if you go through a black hole, you get squished to 10 to the minus 22 centimeters, which is really unhealthy. I mean, basically, how are you going to get out of this problem? And your whole spacecraft will be squished to 10 to the minus 22 centimeters. So, I mean, it's not. It's just saying, we're going through a wormhole. This is, logically crazy. You'd have to have a technology that was just as great as traveling millions of miles per hour. And still it would take thousands upon thousands of years to get here.
It is wild to think that God created the galaxy as big as it is, and the galaxies, and that there is this much time and space. It's just, it's mind bending to think about.
Oh, yeah.
And also to imagine that, okay, maybe there is only one civilization and it's ours. And he created all of that vast time and space and material. Oh, yeah. And we don't even get to see it, but it's all, he still wanted to create it. And here we are, little tiny planet Earth. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Andromeda is our closest galaxy. Take us billions of years, aliens, billions of years at super fast speeds to get here, Again, the whole idea of intergalactic travel. So, it's still up for grabs, to be honest with you. Maybe I shouldn't have said 51%. Maybe I should have just said 50-50. So I'm not. He's down a percentage after this chat. No, I mean, it's just so much to consider, and like I said, you have to get over. I need some proof it's not lasers. I really want some proof. You got to get the proof in here. Yeah. Father, thank you for enlightening us on this topic of aliens and for letting us explore the galaxies. Of potential extraterrestrial life forms. Well, no, thank you, Lila, for the opportunity. For a little reading assignment for people listening, what would you recommend of your work that people can study or read or purchase on this topic?
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint, on the topic that goes into, pretty explicit detail about various kinds of things. I also have a book called Science at the Doorstep to God. And there I have an explanation of why our soul, has those 5 operations that I talked about that require transphysical processes. And then in my book, Christ, Science, and Reason, in appendix number 2 of that book, I basically have a whole consideration of aliens in light of, the transphysical technology.
Fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Father Spitzer. Always a delight to have you on. And thank you for this conversation. It gives me a lot to imagine, to think about.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Lila Rose podcast. Let me know what you guys think. Is Father Robert Spitzer an alien? He's very bright. He just might be. Am I an alien? Are you an alien? I don't know. But regardless of whether we're aliens or humans, we are created by a God who loves us. And that should give us all a lot of peace. And a huge thank you to EWTN, Eternal Word Television Network, which is the largest religious broadcaster in the world. You can get access to Lila Rose Show episodes 24 hours in advance at EWTN.com/on-demand. And a big thank you to EWTN and their incredible mission to bring souls to Jesus.